Good evening, everybody. We're going to wait just a couple of minutes. People are coming in now, and then we'll get started with our meeting. Okay, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Unfortunately, our speaker from the port, who was going to talk about the waterfront trail, is not able to be with us this evening. And City Attorney Davison will be arriving a little bit later than expected. So we're going to shuffle the order in which we go about our meeting. So I think the first thing that we're going to do is take care of a little bit of council business. And then if there is time, we'll move to what we're going to do at the end and then interrupt ourselves when council member City Attorney Davison joins us. And that's to have open input from those members of the community who are here and would like to tell us what you'd like to have us talking about and thinking about as we go forward next year. So with that, I'm going to ask the board members if there's anyone who would make a motion. We have 3 months of minutes to approve, and if anyone would make a motion to approve those. Anyone? A board member? Marcus? Okay, thank you.
I
And
second.
thank you, Don. Okay, and I apologize for those being late. And Ben Bennett, our treasurer, is here. So Ben, if you want to give a quick treasurer's report, we can do that.
Sure. As of the beginning of the month, the general fund was at $2,440.41, and the land use is $1,426.45.
Okay, thank you. And I think I don't know if all of our committee chairs are here. Nicole, are you on? I don't think so yet. So Don, do you want to go ahead and talk a little bit about parks? I know you had a meeting, and then we'll keep going from there.
Yeah, really, we haven't had our meeting yet. Our meeting is actually in 2 weeks. Or 3 weeks, because we meet the second Tuesday of every month at 7:30. And since today is the first day of the month, it kind of pushes us for a while there. But what we do know is there's been some talk about, and I think there's a Queen Anne Moms Facebook group that has, and other people have voiced concern. They've heard the Queen Anne pool is closing. Some thoughts were that it was closing forever. There was a lot of craziness. So the Queen Anne pool is closing on November 17th and reopening on December 4th. And it's maintenance that is going to happen that they wanted to do, that they would have liked to have done during the summer when they closed the Queen Anne pool. because there were not enough lifeguards. But that is also the maintenance time for pools because more people are going to the lakes and such. And so, so they're doing it now. And hopefully that will all work out. And our pool does get closed more often than some of the ones around us. It's sort of they feel like we have an abundance of things in Queen Anne, and therefore we could always go to the Ballard pool, right? Or that we're so wealthy that you should just be joining a fitness club that has a pool. I'm not sure which. It might be a combination of all. The other one is that sort of outside within the Parks Committee, the Parks purview, but not quite in the committee, I guess, as a whole. We had another meeting on the Queen Anne Community Center. And we're in the very, very, very preliminary stuff, working with the advisory council of the Queen Anne Community Center. And they're sort of the group that's actually knows the most about the community center, what the community center needs. And Paula and I both attend and pay attention, and every once in a while, have things to say. So they came up with 3 very, very, very sketchy, ballpark plans just to start to get an idea of things we could do, along with really ballpark estimates on the community centers, on the costs of the different ideas. So we're sort of in a lively discussion. Again, this will, when they're ready, all this does come back to the community. There will be a meeting by Parks that invites the entire community to start to see sort of the ideas. Usually they will show 2 or 3 plans that are a little more refined than what we're seeing. And then you can kind of look and which one do you like? And you can mix and match, like, I like this one in plan 3, but I'd like to move it over to plan 1 because, that kind of stuff. If you've never been involved in one of these things before, that's the way it works. And you sticky notes and all this stuff. So that's sort of the Parks things that we're doing right now.
Thank you. I don't think any other committee chairs are on right now. So perhaps later on we can pick them up or catch them next time. Okay. I'm just looking. So I think what we'll do then is just open the forum to anyone from the community who'd like to provide some input. We didn't get many questions from people for Attorney Davison when she shows up, but if you have something you'd like to either put in the chat, we'll try to make sure that she answers that, or you can ask the question of her directly when she is here. But along the lines of other community issues, does anyone have anything they would like to bring up to the council that you'd like to see us talking about, bringing information to the community? We must be doing an excellent job. So thank you all. Well, thank you for being here anyway. So, okay.
Paula, we're still, I'm not sure. There's a lot of people on this meeting right now, so I'll just mention it. I know that the people who were there a month or 2 ago already heard this, but the one thing that the Queen Anne Community Council is doing and through the Parks Committee is working on a off-leash area on top of Queen Anne. And there were 32 possible sites in the city. They narrowed it down to 9. We are one of those 9. The area that has been talked about is a park that's actually called the East Queen Anne Playfield, but those of us locals up here have been, we know it as Little Howe, right? So it's on the east side of the Queen Anne Avenue. And they're still taking all the data that they got. A lot of people responded because they asked, of course, for everybody's opinions, and they got quite a few. And like all off-leash areas, they are controversial, especially by neighbors who live near them. But one thing I've noticed, I've been on the parks chair for, I don't know, a long time, 23 years, something like that, is that anything that happens next to the park that is in your neighborhood. Always gets personal. But I do want to remind people, just a thought, that everyone thinks of dogs, and I don't own a dog. I always like to make that clear when I'm talking dog off leash areas, is that everyone thinks, well, why do dogs get this? Well, think of it. It's not for the dogs. Every dog has a person. That person went out, got the dog. They like it. This is them. They're bringing their dog to be happy so that they're happier as human beings. And so it's for the dogs, but it really is for the health of the people that have the pet. And also it gets them off our play fields and out of our parks, where really they are kind of a environmental disaster. You can go and look at Rogers Park. I was going through old pictures of parks the other day just by chance and saw a picture of Rogers Park, probably about 10 years ago, before the amount of dogs that we have now, because there's just a lot of dogs now. There were less dogs. People had less dogs. And Rogers Park was green. You would walk around under the trees and around the area. It was very green. Now it's, kind of brown and very little. So that's sort of one of the things that we're working on. So for people who would like an off-leash area, when this comes out, because even if they pick us out of the 9, and there are other excellent sites throughout the city that would also be good choices, just not good for us, that there will be an incredible outreach to everyone in the Queen Anne community to, again, voice whether they would like to see an off-leash area there or not.
Yep.
That's my spiel.
Thank you. That's good. That's good. And the parks open space plan actually has started a new phase now where for additional community input. So when our newsletter comes out toward the end of this week, you'll find that information and a link to the site where you can provide your input on that plan at its current stage. And there'll be, of course, additional developments as that goes along. There are also some other interesting things in the newsletter as well. The Chamber of Commerce is doing a wine walk on Queen Anne Avenue in November, so don't forget about that. For those of you who missed Trick or Treat on the Ave yesterday, it was really a lot of fun. And I actually even got candy when I was being a crossing guard. So lots of fun for everyone. And finally, I think the only other thing of note is that the city auditor actually did an audit of SDCI, and we coincidentally were checking on demolition permits for infamous Hillside Motel and the eightplex next door. Because those hadn't been issued and we were concerned. So in any event, the audit, a link to that audit will be available as well, so you can see what the audit findings were. It's very interesting. Beth, you have a question.
No, I just wanted to say on the election committee, I wanted to thank everybody for coming out for our election forums. We hosted, from the primaries up until last week, just hosting King County District 7 and also District 4. So whatever happens with the election, we will be, initiating new relationships with our new representatives. And I just wanted to thank everybody for coming out. And I think it's a great time to also let's share ideas, not on this forum, but separately about how we can engage with our electeds, because I think we've done a great job with those forums. I think they were really well attended. And I thank everybody for coming out and submitting questions in advance.
Yeah, thank you. And Beth, you did a great job on that. And thanks to our Uptown Alliance folks too, who also helped with that and helped promote it. So it was really a very good forum. There will be a couple of additional questions that were posed to both candidates for the city council, and those and their answers you'll find in the newsletter this month. So you'll get that on Friday. And so if you haven't already marked your ballot, it might be one more factor in your thinking in any event. Okay, I don't see any other questions. Does anyone have anything they would like to add while we're waiting for our speaker to arrive? Okay, well, then we can take just a couple of minutes. I know we have some new board members who are with us And we didn't do introductions at all last time. So I'm just going to go around the screen, and if I miss somebody, please raise your hand. But otherwise, raise your hand, and when I call your name, and turn your camera on so that people can see who you are. In fact, I should probably introduce all of the board members that are present. So I'm going to start with Beth Bunnell. Beth is our secretary and has been for several years. Thank you, Beth. Marcus White. Marcus is new on the board, but has been involved with the council for or a year or more now. Let's see, who else am I seeing? Steve Reddy. Steve is new to our board. Thank you, Steve. We're looking forward to working with you. And Don Harper, of course, our parks chair. I see Al. I don't know if that is Samuel Hilbert or not, but Samuel Hilbert, who is the owner of Alwell Cellars, is also a new member on our board. Ben Bennett, our treasurer, is an old member on our board. Let's see. Who else am I seeing? And myself, of course, and Tyler Crone just joined. Tyler's our public safety committee chair and has been on the board for a few years. And I've been chair for, this will be the third year, and on the board for a year prior to that. So plus back in the late 70s and early 80s was also on the Queen Anne Community Council. So and someone was asking if the forums are recorded, and yes, they are. So when the newsletter comes out, there will be a link to the recordings for both forums. We had both the county council candidates and the city council candidates, and then we have our additional question that was posed to those individuals on city council. And you can see the recorded forums, and then you can read the answers to the questions. And that's all I see. So we are still waiting for Attorney Davison to join us.
It seems like she's about 5 minutes out, so she's almost there. But
Okay,
if I could throw out one thing, Paula, for the forums, once we have our new council, and I know it'll be a really exciting time, our office is open to if you guys are planning something all together with the new group and just going forward, look forward on any of the issues. So that would be an interesting thing to think about for the next year.
that's great. Thank you. And Marina Udadek, you might want to introduce yourself, Marina, because I don't know that people know who you are.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm the community engagement manager for the Seattle City Attorney's Office, and I actually have the awesome job of finding all the community groups and organizations, and sometimes we have awesome walking groups in Seattle. So it's my job to seek them out, find them, see if there's anybody interested in anything our office does, and kind of I think city attorney calls it, take the front desk to the people so that you guys don't have to come find me. So if you see anybody wanting to talk about our office or anything we do, it's a lot easier to just reach out to me going, hey, this is something that's been coming up, and we can come out and I can have the city attorney come out and speak to you guys. I have a great job, really. I get to talk to people.
Thank you, Marina. And she makes it possible for us to get Attorney Davison here at our meetings as well. So, and we appreciate that. So
Thank you.
I know she's very busy. Okay. Otherwise, I guess, Tyler, would you like to say something briefly about the Public Safety Committee meeting that you had? That was actually, it kind of ties in with a little bit of what we're going to be talking about tonight.
Sure, absolutely. It was so fantastic to have a small group of us meet at KEXP and be in conversation with Sean Blackwell, who has been part of the LEAD program, who Paula had brought into the Queen Anne Community Council for many of our meetings. And we were able to have an intimate conversation with him around what is happening at a street level, what does diversion really look like from that perspective of having worked with communities and marginalized people in crisis at a street level, in jail settings and other situations. And so I think we had a very thoughtful conversation about what resources are and are not in place, and how we as Queen Anne can be a more proactive partner in finding solutions for our neighborhood, but for the city also as a whole. And one of the fantastic things that followed up in terms of where our conversation went with Sean is, one, his desire to continue to be in conversation with him. And then shortly thereafter, he has joined the new initiative that is trying to be piloted by the mayor, that is going to have crisis response, a care program that aims to be the equivalent of fire, of police, and now a behavioral health arm, so that social workers will be able to go out there and serve people in crisis and connect them to services. And so it was wonderful to be able to be there with Paula. A huge shout out to our city council member, Andrew Lewis, who was behind the launch of this program. One of our other Queen Anne Community Council members, Bob Kettle, was also there. And so it is exciting to be at the ground level in conversation with Sean as this program takes off, and as we see if this can be a meaningful pathway to addressing the behavioral health and homelessness crisis we all care about and want to do better on. So thank you, Paula. And we will be, I will put a little snippet here, doing some planning for 2024 on December 4th. And then I hope we will be able to organize a beer get together with our newly elected officials in January to start the new year, and have those conversations from the get-go with those who will be serving us. And it's been exciting to already have that underway. So thank you all.
Thanks, Tyler. And just to clarify too, so Sean Blackwell is now working with Amy Smith, and those of you who may remember a few months ago, Amy Smith was at one of our meetings talking about the new initiative called Qacc that the mayor has launched, and is the third leg of the response stool. So it's really exciting. Right now, of course, it's only available downtown, but we're hoping that that sooner rather than later, it will be expanding to Uptown, Queen Anne, and other communities as well, because those kind of responders are needed throughout the city. Of course, very critically downtown, but certainly throughout the rest of the city too, as those problems impact all of us. So are there any questions about the care team or any of the things that Tyler was mentioning? And for those of you who are interested in any of these topics, you're also welcome to join a committee meeting as they come up. And those will be posted in our newsletter as well. And we're going to try also to do more outreach about those meetings so that more people can be aware. So Attorney Davison is just joining us, so I'm going to give her a minute or so to get settled and organized. Thank you. She's here and looking ready to go for it. So Anne, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your working us into your busy schedule. And with that, we'd like to turn it over to you and hear about what's new, if anything, in the city attorney's office, and also have you talk a little bit about the impact to the city attorney's office with the new law on public drug use and public drug possession. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, thank you. My apologies for my tardiness. I thank you for your patience. Try to be everywhere all the time does not work. In case you were wondering, I've tried it, and it doesn't work. But we get to where we need to be. So I appreciate your patience and letting me join you a little bit late. And so we are happy to be here. I know I see Marina. I'm not sure if I have Tim also on the call, but we are here. And Tim is one of the newer members of my team, so happy to have him join. If we were here last year, we would have had someone else. So he's my communications manager there. And the reason we're here always is because Marina, and we bring the front desk to you, so you don't need to come to an office. And it's really, to me, a really important piece is to be able to have that accessibility with community, to be able to listen and hear about what's important in different neighborhoods and in large and small groups. So for us, as far as things that are new, right now, one of my main focuses is our Kia Hyundai litigation that I initiated, the first in the country. And so that is kind of a predominant topic for me that I still stay focused on. We had 16 other governmental entities join that litigation. So it has become a consolidated government action, multi-district litigation. It's in the Northern District of California. The car manufacturers have sent in a motion to dismiss the case. That'll be heard in early November. We are November 1st today, so it's in a matter of just a couple of weeks that'll be heard. So hoping that is something that is going to be able to continue to proceed on that. Just to give you a quick background on that case specifically, we started to see, because we do have great data over at Seattle Police Department about stolen vehicles all the way down to models and years. And so when this was flagged as an issue that had been increasing across the country, we were able to pull our data and see that yes, there had been combined between Kia and Hyundai over a 600% increase in those vehicles being stolen. And again, it's vehicle models from 2011 to 2021, only in that 10-year time span, and only in their least expensive models. Did they exclude anti-theft technology that's nearly universal in all other car manufacturers? They included it in their more expensive models in that 10-year time span, and they've included it in all their models going forward since 2022. So they made a decision to exclude it from the least expensive models for a 10-year time span. So to me, that is now, we know they're susceptible to theft. We have seen those increases. It is draining police officer resources and time. It is causing a lot of criminal activity. It is also exacerbating others because of a lot of associated crime that's sadly going along with that. And so to me, that's a really important piece, because it's a way to be strategic and efficient with our resources of what can I do to help improve public safety. And one thing is to be impactful and to say that these should be recalled and there should be that anti-theft technology put in. And it's not sufficient unless that happens, because it has become the level of public nuisance. So that's a big part for me that's been a focus. So if you've maybe heard about it, sadly, you might be somebody who has had that occur to you, or an attempted, or know someone who has, because pretty much in every meeting Marina and I go to, we hear about it from somebody, sadly. So I do know it impacts a lot of people. And I think that's an important piece to talk about that's maybe not thought about a lot when we're talking about public safety, and when someone is expecting to hear from me on other things like our public use and possession law that we were talking about. But that to me is a significant piece, because it is impacting our public safety in a way that we really do need to see how can we improve on that. And so we'll see how that proceeds. And again, that's not instead of holding people accountable who commit the crimes or attempt, but this is in addition to. So it is not to remove that layer of accountability from a criminal action, but it is something that we think should be held again on the civil side from a litigation standpoint, of which I started. So I was really pleased that to make that decision on behalf of the city. Again, the first one in the country to do so, and many others have joined from across the country on that, because they also have the really skyrocketing amount of thefts of those, again, that 10-year time span of the least expensive models of those two manufacturers. So it is impacting a lot of locations, but particularly here. So that's been one that has been that you may not have stopped to think about, that was something that's related to the work that we're doing in the civil division there. And other work that is new is exactly as you said, Paula, the new drug ordinance that we have that has made it a gross misdemeanor for possession and knowing possession and public use of illegal drugs. Again, when it had been enacted at the state level at that compromise, 86% of the state lawmakers voted for that original state law. That's a lot of people. We put a lot of people down there to make our state laws, and that is a large number of those lawmakers who voted for that. That's large majority. So we have a different take on that here, where we've taken that and added to that the additional piece where they need to show that there's obviously going on harm at the either to self or to others, and various other aspects of that. There's, in addition to that, some SPD policy that's been directed. I don't direct the police, so as people are wanting to think about this topic, it's really important to, if you've heard me say it before, I apologize, but I think it's still important, as I find a lot of what I'm doing is almost like a generic civics education, but I am like, if you imagine a track relay team with that baton, if you've watched that, and in any sporting event with the track team, in the way I visualize it is that law enforcement is that first leg of that track relay team, and we get a referral, which is like the baton handoff to that second leg. So we are the second leg of that sequence, and so we don't do anything unless and until we get a referral, and that is including this new drug ordinance. And so there is the goal of even at the state law, it's clearly the legislative intent is to get people into treatment. We are trying to get people into recovery, and this is one of the tools by which we can do so. And so also then at the city level, there's a high focus on diversion, making sure we are getting people into treatment. So that is can be done whether there's an arrest, they can send someone to services, they can do that prior to booking, but post-arrest. And then it can also culminate into a referral, right, which is that handoff, as I mentioned, with the track relay team to my criminal division and here at the city attorney's office. And then we also can look at that. And then we look at it independently from what the police have done, and separately, we analyze it based on the merits of the case and the evidence before us. We are not dictated by the policy of SPD, but by the bounds of what we are required to do as prosecutors and our discretion. And so again, the goal is treatment. We're trying to get people into treatment, and we're trying to make public spaces safer. We are trying to make sure that we are intervening meaningfully, and that is both at the individual level, but in a societal level as well. So we have that when we will get those cases, we will look at those on a case-by-case basis and see what is the appropriate response for that case. And so we are preparing for that. That has been not in effect even a month. It just went into effect at near the end of October. And so we are getting prepared to see what we will receive from that, because we don't know. So that's going to be an ongoing thing. I do intend to obviously be tracking data. That is something that I have really came into office with a goal to do, and have implemented that, and will continue to do so, bringing a first of its kind, a data and transparency team to the city attorney's office, so that it helps me and my advisors here that I've decided to be part of my team here. Helps us make best decisions, and it also is to be informative for the public, for them to understand, right? So how does the system work, and who can actually influence what part of it, right? So that's why I make sure to educate people along the way that we stand at the ready. We work with Seattle Police Department because we're dependent upon their work, but we make our decisions separately from them, and as with that prosecutorial discretion there, as we do with every case, to analyze the merits of each case and decide that. And so we will do that again, with this at mark points. We will be able to provide that look as to here's what we are receiving and what are we doing with those, because I think everybody that I speak to will be interested to know, as would I, because we want to know, is it now making an impact, and are we able to get people into treatment, and are we seeing a reduction in our public spaces such that it is becoming safer for people to go about their daily lives, and they are not put at the front lines of contending with, what do I do? I'm an everyday person. I shouldn't be the one who is having to figure out what to do in this type of a situation. And so that's kind of that is obviously one of the big parts that's coming on. And again, we are now closing in, for me, near the end of year 2. So about halfway through. It's hard to believe that also, but I do feel immensely thankful and very honored to be here. It is just a true pleasure for me to serve in this role. I don't use the word pleasure because not every part of it is something enjoyable. It's not enjoyable to talk about. Somebody might need to be in custody, but what I mean is that at least I'm very thankful that my time that I spend on my work is something that can be impactful in a positive way, is what I hope. And it really does mean a lot to me to be serving in this role. And so we are looking forward to, again, continuing the piece about how do we recenter victims in the public safety conversation. That's a continuous part that will stay a part of what I'm doing, and continually talking about that in every venue that I'm at, because the system that we have, the criminal legal system, is there because no victim had ever asked to be a part of it. And so they really do need to be at the center because they are now also being brought through this complicated system just because they now are a crime victim. And so that does need to stay at the forefront and in the focus because it can be a daunting experience, and we want to make sure that we are there being responsive and being able to have the accountability, which is why our laws are there in the first place. So that's, I would say, my moments for you for now at the end of the day, for what's top of mind for me and what's important. Some of it might have sounded still familiar to you, but it just means that we're not done, and it still is going to take some while to get some of these improved on, and they stay at the forefront, and they are worth repeating, in my opinion.
And could I ask you a question? So what exactly is the process when, let's say that somebody is arrested, brought to trial, and one of your prosecutors prosecutes the case but recommends diversion, and who is that individual handed off to then? Because obviously that's not something you do in the city attorney's office. So how does that happen, or what happens to that individual next?
Well, we have two types of diversion. So in the scenario you provided, that would be, it sounds like post-arrest and post-charge. And so then there are some diversions that are going to be set up through the court, and there are some things that we can do, which will be kind of having some conditions where we may then drop charges if we see that somebody's engaged in treatment for whatever is specific to what their needs are. I do have two lead prosecutors who then monitor the cases that are referred to lead, that then we are tracking that to see, is there engagement, right? Is there actual improvement and work that's being done at that within that program? And that's an important piece to understand, because if that's working and that's responsive, then we need to know that. If we've tried that multiple times or something and it's not working, we need to know that as well. And so that would all weigh into that decision. There's not, we do also then obviously have the pre-filing diversion. So it would be a referral sent over. We've decided to not file criminal charges, but we do have now 5 diversionary programs through that the Human Services Department is now the contract holder within the city. It used to be at the city attorney's office, but council has directed that to now be over at the Human Services Division as the one that is determining the contracting. But we are the ones deciding who should go to what program, and also working with those community partners for that, because again, that's the discretion part, that it has to be the right incident, person, and program. Otherwise, the alternatives will not have the reduction in recidivism that we're hoping that they do see. So that is why it is a really delicate and an important process, and can't just be done lightly without a lot of insight and work on that.
Thank you. We just had a question posted in chat. Is there data to support a link to the public drug use offenders under the new law and the prolific offenders that have been a recent focus? If so, and how? I think Okay, if not, will this data be collected, investigated for lessons learned on cases where diversion/treatment will likely not be effective? And I'm in a, oh, okay. Anyway, yeah, so I think the question really is for those people who are offered diversion programs rather than going to jail repeatedly. How closely is all of that data tracked? Because obviously you're handing people off to other organizations. So when someone comes through for maybe the third or fourth or even fifth time, which is probably not unusual, do your prosecutors, I guess, have visibility to that as they're looking at those cases that they get?
Whoever asked the question is right on track with me, because again, as we take things offline and into private sector, right, which, because these are nonprofit groups, like, it's exactly the question is then, well, then how do we know, is this actually being effective, and is it addressing what we're hoping it addresses? So I'm absolutely completely interested in that question and making sure that data is tracked and I know it, because I can't make decisions if I don't know that. And so in order to then answer the question is, are some of these alternatives to what is traditionally considered prosecution, is that working? And the only way we know is, are we seeing referrals from this person again, like more law enforcement referrals? Are we now continuing to see that there is contact with police officers? And it's why, and that's going to be part of what I look at on a continuous basis, because really what it seems to be looking like is there's contact with law enforcement. Not all of them are going to result in a report, and not all of them will actually result in a referral to the prosecutor, right? So it's dwindled down along the way, so that when eventually when it does come over, that might have had more than that one interaction. It may be that one interaction, but it could have been more. We don't know. It just is now we get that referral. So we take them seriously. And so if there is that pre-filing diversion, it's really important to see, has that now been a meaningful change, and the trajectory and activity is now showing that.
Okay. And I guess maybe a follow-on question as you were talking. So you obviously would know who you have referred to diversion through the court system, but I guess, do you have visibility to people who perhaps were referred before arrest or prior to being to actually having charges pressed, or what is your visibility to that kind of data?
Yeah, so that would be, that's the law enforcement assisted diversion. And so again, I have lead prosecutors in my office. And so that is then where that circle is there. We're able to understand what is happening for the people that are in that program. And is there engagement with the services that are now being lined up and offered, et cetera. And so that's where we are able to see that.
And do you want to explain just briefly what lead is, because everybody may not, a lead counsel is not the same as a lead attorney. So
yeah, I do usually not lead with words without defining it typically. So apologize. That is not my usual thing, but the end of the day got me. So LEAD stands for Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion, which is a program that law enforcement officers can choose to, when they, again, have contacts with somebody, and they can, because they are supposed to decide whether or not I'm making a police report based on things that are happening. They have their own way that they're supposed to be constitutionally policing. And so based on that, they are able to, instead of referring everything to a prosecutor, they can say, I'm going to get this person in the LEAD program and hope that this is the thing that will deter future criminal activity. And they can just send it directly that way. So that's what that program stands for and what that word means in that setting. And so police officers do that. themselves, and it does not involve my office. That is prior to there being any referral. We just have that because then if we do start to see referrals, we need to know these people are engaged in services, what's happening for that now, why are we seeing some referrals, that is alleged crimes that are occurring, what's happening, and it gives us a moment to go back and see for that specific person what's actually happening.
Right. And we have a very nerdy specific question for you.
I'll try.
From a board member. Your office filed an amicus brief to the Supreme Court in respect of the Grants Pass case. You might want to explain what that is. And can you just talk through why the city decided to step in on that case?
Okay, this is great that people get to ask questions in anonymity. So I don't know who's asking, who's self-described the question.
It's me.
We have attorneys lurking in the background here.
Oh, lurking in the background. Okay, but at least you it's fun to be able, you self-described your own question. I don't know about that at all. So in reference to, we'll first unpack the question, which is the city of Grants Pass, Oregon had an ordinance related to encampments and a specific type of prohibition that they had in an ordinance. It was challenged as unconstitutional. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals said, no, you can't have that ordinance. It's not constitutional. And the city of Grants Pass, there's lots more procedure there, but we're going to bypass that because that is going maybe into the more nerdy part that's not really of interest to most on a community call. But the city of Grants Pass then has now asked the U.S. Supreme Court to hear the case. So they are appealing the decision from the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. And it is not on their ordinance specifically, but it is obviously a very significant issue, not just for the city of Seattle, but for the West Coast predominantly. But it is an area of law that, to me, needs to have a decisive moment. And so this, because it was the timing of it, I decided that it was important to do. And so we provided the draft and wrote the brief that the International Municipal Lawyers Association signed on to. The Marina, you may have to help me. I had all the names right at my head. We had probably over a dozen cities. We had Anchorage, Honolulu, all the way over to Providence, Rhode Island, and some in the Albuquerque, Las Vegas, like a large selection of municipalities from across the country, and a couple of other large associations that signed on to our brief along with us. So it was not just the city's brief, but it was all of those signatories. Because it is a significant issue. From a legal question, there is a question that does need to be addressed that in a clear way, so that municipalities understand what are they able to do and what are they not able to do. And because there's been so much within the Ninth Circuit specifically that is unclear, and there has been such dissension at the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals because of the procedural questions, they wouldn't even go back and look at it again. But even that was in really close contention as to whether or not they should hear that case again. So it just is really clear from a legal question, there's one that needs to be addressed and answered. So that was the main impetus to do that, is to ask for that clarity from the U.S. Supreme Court. And as to how that came about like that, I am here I'm the attorney for the city, and I felt like that is an important legal question that we do need to have addressed, so that policymakers have the ability to understand what are the options that we can choose.
Just to clarify, because I think I know what this case is, but correct me if I'm wrong. This is a case that the Ninth Circuit said if there's not housing or appropriate housing or something, that you could not remove someone from an encampment, or you couldn't tell them that they couldn't camp. I'm sure that that's not the appropriate legal words, but
It's close to that, Ryan, and it's where, you know, the phrase that has been taken somewhat where it's criminalizing, you know, for that. And but it is, again, trying to figure out what is the municipality able to do, because they are supposed to be able to understand what can you do around public spaces. So, yes.
great. Thank you for the nerdy question, Beth.
Hopefully
Anybody
I
else?
made it less nerdy, and all the regular people who were not so interested or in the know actually understood most of it.
Yeah, does anybody have a normal question? I have a general question for you. So I know that even prior to the latest, you know, the passage of the latest ordinance and everything else that's kind of been going on, because the city is really kind of coming back to life. How is staffing at the city attorney's office? And do you feel like you have sufficient staff, or are you still trying to hire people to fill seats?
What's his name there?
I'm sorry, somebody is not
Yeah.
muted. Can you?
Yeah,
please?
everybody.
There we go. Okay. We are doing well as far as what the positions that we had when I came on. We are doing well. And does that mean we have enough people? I'm not sure, but we are at a place where we're almost at capacity with every position almost filled. Again, this is a side note, but you know, I never knew if I would, you know, like it's, you know, basically managing, you know, a 200-person law department. You know, a law firm is essentially a lot of some of that task. But I do take, again, great pleasure, and it gives me a lot of joy. So again, just immensely thankful to be in the position, because I actually enjoy that part too. So really do enjoy it, and we hopefully create a great sense of team, because I'm here speaking to you, but I'm only here because of the work of all of the dedicated people that are in the background that you don't get to see on a screen or meet or see their name on the ballot, because they are the nuts and bolts of making it work and representing the city in litigation, and prosecutors and victim advocates and professional support staff who are making the department go, which are there available for people when they happen to, sadly, if they happen to become the victim of a misdemeanor crime. And so it really is because of them why I'm able to be here and tell you about it. But we have people who have been in the city attorney's office for decades, and it's fantastic. And then there are many there that I have hired, and so it's a great mix, and I'm really honored to work with them.
Great, thank you. Any other questions for City Attorney Davison? Raise your hand, speak up. Nerdy questions not required. So I guess not. I think you've answered
Right.
everything. You've done a brilliant job. So thank you so much, as always, for your time. We know you have very little of it, and we appreciate you coming, and we'll definitely have you back probably in a few months to see how things are moving along at that point. And yeah, and thank you, Marina, for making this happen. So, and thanks, Marcus, for driving that process as well. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. Again, it is one of my favorite parts. Again, I have a lot of favorite parts, but this is one of my favorite parts. This really is talking with people and making sure that they feel informed and hearing their concerns. And if I can address any of those, make sure you connect with Marina, and we'll see what we can do. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and thanks. Good night. Okay. Is there, Marina, would you, or yeah, before you leave, would you just put your contact information in chat so that people can reach out to you as they may see fit? Or I
Put it in
can.
here. And again, thank you so much for having us, you guys.
Absolutely. Thank you. Okay. That is all that I have on the agenda. is there anything that anyone else had? Denny, you have your hand raised. Did I miss you?
I get you, huh?
Did I miss you before? And
No.
David? Okay, okay, good,
No,
thanks.
no, 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 no,
Okay,
no.
great.
I would, you know me, I would have spoken
Okay.
somehow.
Good.
My other question is, this is partly for my own, but is there a quick NAC update since I didn't make it to the last NAC meeting? So it's partly for me, but in case anybody else wants to know what's going on with NAC.
Well, I can tell you what I remember and Don can fill in the blanks because, let's see, we had an update on birth 6 and 8. Is that the right number, Don? I can't remember. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there was a quick update perhaps on the trail, or maybe that, I mean, no, that work is perhaps even being done now. I don't remember what the date was on it. And I think that's what I recall. Our facilitator, Weldon, is retiring, so we will be getting a new person in that capacity, and NAC members will be interviewing those candidates that come brought forward through 501 Commons, and then also selecting that person. So, and right now we're kind of trying to do a bit of a knowledge dump from both Weldon and Fred, who are retiring from NAC. So what did I miss, Don?
No, you pretty much got it. Just for people to know, the trail that was talked about is the bike trail that is on the east side of the uplands, or between the Port of Seattle and the railroad tracks. We all remember the bridge that you have to go up and over. So they're removing that, I believe, that bridge and making it so that you're not riding your bike across the railroad tracks. So it'll be flat. I do think that work is done now, but it may be that you're correct. I didn't have my NAC notes here in front of me. So, but it will happen soon. They do have to close the trail in order to do this. So that's why I think it was fairly quick.
Yep. Yeah. And I think that was it. The cruise season is over. They had a very successful cruise season this year, and next year is expected to be even more so. So that's something to look forward to.
Oh, and they'll have electrical power to Pier 66, right? So that the cruise ships can go. Not all cruise ships are connected for this, but they are able to go when they're in port. They can turn off their diesel engines and be plugged into city power, and so that cable will happen. And I think it's January, and they'll pretty much have it hooked up. So we'll have a little cleaner because, of course, those big ships have to run all the time, right? They have to run all the time. So they're either going to run off diesel fuel. And it does have to be low sulfur fuel, as long as they're within the Puget Sound airshed, as they say, which pretty much as you enter the straight to Wanafuka, right? Start to come in, you're in the airshed. So it's a little cleaner, but it's still diesel. So we'll be on electric power. So that's very cool.
Yep, that's great. And that's about it, Denny.
Okay, thanks, Paul.
Thank you. Yeah.
And Don.
Thanks, Don. Yeah, too. So, okay. Well, thank you, everyone. We appreciate you being here, and we'll have, I think we'll have a meeting in December. We're trying to discuss that because so many people are busy with holiday functions that's oftentimes not a very busy time for the community council. So stay tuned and watch the newsletter. We'll let you know when our next meetings are. Thank you, and good night, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.